After the adopted daughter got into college, her biological parents came to claim her back. I tried to stop her, but she secretly acknowledged them anyway. In the end, she even plotted my death for the sake of her biological parents. So, in this second life, I quickly returned her to her biological parents. As a result, she regretted it just a few days after going back, because her biological parents weren't even willing to pay for her college tuition. So, she begged me to take her back. I scoffed. This isn't a garbage dump. I was reborn. In my previous life, my adopted daughter Wendy personally signed the consent form to abandon treatment after I was in a car accident. After my death, she whispered in my ear, "Bella, do you know, it was me who tampered with your car to cause the accident." She nearly gritted her teeth as she said, "I hate you for making me miss out on 25 years of the parental love I should have had." Perfect. I spent 25 years raising someone else's unwanted child, only to end up nurturing hatred. She handled everything with remarkable efficiency, without a moment's delay. Cremated on the same day, the ashes collected that very day. Then, she took my family's assets and used them to support her biological parents. Little did anyone expect, heaven has eyes. I opened mine again and found myself back 7 years in the past, on the very day her biological parents came knocking at the door. Wendy had just finished her college entrance exams not long before they arrived, and she happened to be at home. Her biological mother, Kathy, tearfully held her hand and said, "My dear daughter, I've finally found you." Her biological father, David, chimed in beside her, "My dear daughter, I've finally met you." The two of them then burst into loud sobs together, as if performing in a melodrama. Wendy was stunned by their wailing, just like in her past life. Looking at me blankly and asking what was going on. Actually, she didn't even need to ask. One glance at Kathy told her everything. Wendy and Kathy were practically carbon copies of each other. A paternity test wasn't even necessary. "Sure enough," Kathy said, "we look exactly alike. You're my daughter." If it weren't for the neighbor mentioning they saw a girl who looked just like me on the street a few days ago, I still wouldn't have found you. After speaking, she tearfully spun a flimsy story for Wendy. "Back then, you were only 2 months old. I took you to the market, but I had to use the bathroom, so I left you outside for a moment. When I came back, you were gone. David, we've been searching for you for 18 years, thinking of you every single day." Wendy looked at me again. "Mom, is what they're saying true?" I didn't speak. In my past life, I directly drove Kathy and David away. After they left, I knew the truth couldn't be hidden forever. So I also told Wendy that she wasn't my biological daughter, thinking she was only 18, still at an innocent age, having never experienced the harsh realities of society, unaware of how treacherous people can be. I even tried to reason with her. She was abandoned at my doorstep back then, left there in the dead of winter, in such freezing cold. If someone truly loved her, how could they bear to abandon her? To take a step back, what if I hadn't been home, or if I hadn't taken her in? At such a young age, could she have survived on her own? Moreover, when I found her, I even made special efforts to search for her biological parents, but no one came forward to claim her. Yet, while I worried about Wendy's naivety, it was Wendy who made me relive the harsh lessons of society all over again. No matter how much I analyzed it for her, it couldn't outweigh the bond of blood and the few words from her biological parents. At the time, she firmly told me she wouldn't acknowledge Kathy and David, and even comforted me very maturely. "Mom, don't worry, you're the only mother I'll ever have in this life." But after starting college, she secretly acknowledged Kathy and David behind my back. After graduation, she even deceived me into giving them money, because they told Wendy that all the family's savings had been spent searching for her. They couldn't even afford to raise their own son anymore. When I accidentally saw her bank transfers and the chat records with her biological parents, I scolded her for being irrational. "They didn't raise you, yet they expect you to help support their son. Isn't their intention obvious?" Instead, she blamed me for meddling and angrily retorted, "They're my biological parents, and they searched for me for so many years before finally finding me. If I don't acknowledge them, what will people think of me? Ungrateful, heartless. An ungrateful person. I don't want to be judged like that. Besides, I'm already an adult. Can you stop trying to control every aspect of my life like you used to?" In the end, she even poked at my wound. "No wonder your husband left you and wanted a divorce. It's because you meddle too much in other people's business." After stabbing at my wound, she slammed the door and left. To be fair, though, The reason for my divorce from my ex-husband can't be blamed on Wendy. I divorced him simply because I couldn't have children. There has always been a rumor in Cloud City that if a couple has been married for a long time without having their own child, they can adopt one. If the adopted child is destined to have siblings, the couple will soon have their own child. This was also one of the reasons why we adopted Wendy at the time. However, even 4 years after adopting Wendy, I still showed no signs of pregnancy. My ex-husband's family was very concerned about carrying on the family line, and the whole family grew anxious. My former mother-in-law forcefully ordered us to divorce so that my ex-husband could remarry. He was a mama's boy and obeyed her, so he divorced me. But when we adopted Wendy, it was a decision made by the whole family together. Yet when we divorced, Wendy became mine alone. My ex-husband said, she was never my biological daughter to begin with, and during the divorce, he adamantly refused custody of Wendy, even threatening to send her to an orphanage if the court awarded her to him. After the divorce, he never even came to see Wendy, let alone provide any child support. Even my own mother and brother disapproved of me taking in a daughter who wasn't biologically mine after the divorce, and they were unwilling to accept Wendy. As my mother put it, there's no guarantee your own flesh and blood will support you in old age, let alone someone else's child. What if she learns about her origins someday and decides to find her birth parents? All your efforts would be like drawing water with a bamboo basket, utterly futile. My brother wasn't as blunt as my mother, but he meant the same thing when he said, sis, raising a child will make it harder for you to remarry if you meet someone you like in the future. At the time, I didn't listen to my mother or brother. I felt that since I had adopted Wendy, I should take full responsibility for her. Besides, I was deeply hurt by my ex-husband's family and had no plans to remarry anyway, so, for all these years, I've mostly been juggling work and raising Wendy on my own. Fortunately, being self-employed made it easier to take care of her. Occasionally, when I'm too busy or need to travel far, my brother, despite disliking Wendy, would reluctantly help take care of her for a few days out of respect for me. Now, as I look at Kathy and David who have come to claim their kinship, I realize they must have investigated my family's situation before leaving Wendy at my doorstep. Over the years, they've likely been keeping tabs on our family affairs. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been so confident about abandoning Wendy at my doorstep back then, nor would they have been able to accurately track me down now, years after my divorce and after I've moved once. I pondered for a moment and decided to quickly return Wendy to them. I nodded to Wendy and said, "You're indeed not my biological daughter. Back then, someone left you at my doorstep. Seeing how pitifully you were crying and unable to find out who left you, I adopted you." I thought for a while and added, "But to avoid any mistakes, it's best if you do a paternity test with them." Seeing that I didn't object, Kathy chimed in, "Yes, a paternity test can be done." Wendy went with Kathy and the others to take a paternity test the next day. On the third day, her classmate invited her out for shopping, and I also had some errands to run outside. During mealtime, I happened to run into her and her classmate, and I was seated not far from them. Before the paternity test results even came out, Wendy excitedly told her classmate, "You might not believe it, but I was adopted. The day before yesterday, my biological parents found me. My birth mom even gave me $1,000, saying that as long as I acknowledge them, they'll give me a monthly allowance once I'm in college." Her classmate exclaimed, "Holy crap, there's such a good thing." After the initial shock, she asked Wendy, "So, do you acknowledge it?" Wendy said with some concern, "My adoptive mother probably wouldn't agree. Otherwise, even though I look exactly like my biological mother, my adoptive mother insisted we take a paternity test, tisk." For $1,000, I went from being her mother to an adoptive mother. Who knows how many thousands I've spent on her over the years. What does that even count for? It's quite laughable when you think about it, but I thought to myself, don't talk nonsense. Your adoptive mother agreed to the paternity test just to prevent you from regretting it in the future and not acknowledging that you're their biological child, and then blaming me. As soon as this thought crossed my mind, Wendy's classmate asked her again, "So what are you planning to do?" Wendy thought for a moment, as if making up her mind, and said, "Who cares? Once the paternity test results come out, if they really are my biological parents and my adoptive mother still doesn't agree, I'll secretly go and acknowledge them. I'll get 2 allowances every month." Yay, it was something Wendy could come up with. She had done exactly that in her past life. A few days later, the paternity test results came out. Confirming they were indeed her biological family, Wendy held the test results and asked me, "Mom, should I acknowledge them?" Though she phrased it as a question, her expression practically screamed, "I want to acknowledge them, and I hope you, my adoptive mother, won't be so ungrateful as to stand in my way." Not only did her expression clearly tell me so, but ever since her biological parents appeared, from start to finish, she never once considered my feelings or asked me if I would be sad if she reunited with them. It was as if she had been waiting for this day for a long time. So, I quickly said, "After all, they are your biological parents. It's only right that you reunite with them." I even threw back the exact words she had once said to me in the past, adding, "Besides, they didn't abandon you on purpose back then, and they've been searching for you all these years. Don't break their hearts, otherwise. What will people say about you? Unfilial, ungrateful, heartless. We can't do things that make others point fingers at us." After all, she was going to acknowledge Kathy and David in the end, so she might as well do it now. It would also save me the trouble of paying for her college tuition. Instead of wasting that money, I might as well take a vacation and travel more. Perhaps it's because I didn't oppose Wendy acknowledging her biological parents in this lifetime and even supported her in doing so. After completing the paternity test with Kathy, she happily accepted that Kathy and David were her real parents. Kathy seized the moment and proposed to hold a family recognition ceremony for her. Wendy agreed. The ceremony was said to be quite grand, with Kathy's family setting up over a dozen tables to celebrate Wendy's admission to a second-tier university. After all, Wendy was one of the few girls from their village to make it to college. Before heading back, Wendy politely invited me to join, but I declined. I casually slipped her admission letter into her hand as well, saying kindly, "Since it's both a family reunion banquet and a celebration of your admission, take this along too. In case anyone questions my daughter, you can show it as proof." Wendy didn't suspect a thing and took it with her, not even glancing at it. Inside the admission letter was also tucked her household registration paper. I smiled as I saw her off into the car, adding, "Stay a few more days. It's not every day you get reunited after so long." After she left, I urgently sold off all the family assets I could and prepared to flee. Well, life matters most. On the very first day after my rebirth, I listed the house online and with all major agencies, since it was a school district property for a key middle school and I was in a hurry to sell. I priced it low. By the time Wendy and Kathy's test results came out, someone had already placed an order for it. The day I met Wendy calling me her adoptive mother was the same day I was dealing with the house issue. Wendy was so immersed in the joy of soon reuniting with her biological parents that she never noticed. Moreover, she was hardly at home during this period, either out with friends or called away by Kathy and David. This conveniently allowed me to move out. It was while handling the family assets that I uncovered a secret my past self had missed. While cleaning Wendy's room, I came across her diary. She has a habit of keeping a diary. In the past, I respected her privacy and rarely entered her room, let alone read her diary. But now, sorry to say, everything in this house was bought by me, so I have the right to handle it. She wrote in her diary, she had known for a long time that she wasn't my biological child. When she was old enough to understand, I had to send her to my brother's house for care because I needed to travel far away. Relatives from my hometown had told her about this. They also reminded her that as an abandoned little girl, meeting me was her great fortune. Otherwise, she would have been long gone. After all, in those years, in rural areas, many families with a preference for sons over daughters would abandon girls. They even explained to her the reason why my ex-husband didn't want her during the divorce, so she should learn to be grateful and take good care of me in the future. Although, my relatives are indeed gossipy and shouldn't have told her these things, but her reaction after learning about it chilled me even more. She wrote, "Grateful, grateful my ass. Who knows if Bella couldn't have children herself and that's why she stole me from my real parents." She deserved to be looked down on and abandoned by her ex-husband, even when her grades were poor, and I enrolled her in tutoring classes, confiscated her tablet and phone, and pushed her to improve and study hard. In her diary, all of it was proof that I didn't like her. Clearly, while her classmates were either traveling or being taken abroad for vacations by their parents during the holidays, she had to stay home, miserably studying, helping me with chores, and not even getting to play any games. No wonder she's not my own flesh and blood. No heartache there, just pushing her to do things she dislikes all day long. but the number of times she's actually done chores at home can be counted on one hand. The chores I ask her to do are limited to keeping her own room clean and occasionally helping with house cleaning when I'm too busy with work. As for games, needless to say, after she entered her second year of high school, there was a period when she became obsessed with various games, playing with classmates until 3 or 4 a.m. every day, which forced me to confiscate her tablet and phone. She even fantasized in her diary that her biological parents were billionaires. One day, they would arrive in luxury cars, accompanied by bodyguards, to take her back to a life of wealth. How should I put it? It's indeed the kind of cringy fantasy a girl her age could come up with. But I don't think there's anything wrong with how I raised her. From the time she could remember, I've always discussed and negotiated with her on almost everything, treating her as an independent individual with respect. I never used my identity as her mother to oppress her dictatorially, force her, or employ emotional blackmail, even when she was rebellious during her teenage years. I never imposed financial sanctions on her. Instead, I talked with her heart to heart. So it can only be said that genetics are incredibly powerful. She has perfectly inherited the selfish and self-serving nature of her biological parents. I sold her diary as scrap to the recycling station, and after clearing out everything in the house, I notified the new owner to transfer the property. The transfer process went smoothly. 3 days later, I packed my luggage and left Y City for a small town I had always loved but never moved to because of Wendy's schooling. I bought a new house in the town, planning to settle there permanently. Wendy contacted me again 7 days later. She was about to start school and needed tuition and living expenses, but when she returned, she discovered not only that the family home had changed hands, but also that all her contact information had been blocked and deleted by me. With no other options, she had to reach out to a close friend of mine to ask where I was. Of course, asking was pointless. When I left, I didn't tell anyone, let alone mention where I was going. A friend called to ask me, "What's going on?" I briefly explained the whole situation to my friend and then added, "Don't bother with her." Before I could finish, Wendy's furious voice came through the phone, "Mom, what do you mean by this?" Damn, my friend put me on speakerphone. But whatever, there's another thing I want to say back to Wendy too, I said coldly. Now that your biological parents have been found and you're already an adult, I can't keep controlling and managing every aspect of your life like before, so let's each go our own way. Wendy retorted indignantly, "But it was you who agreed to let me acknowledge my birth parents. I only did it because you told me to." I chuckled coldly. "In your eyes, my title has already changed from mom to adoptive mother. You even said that if I didn't agree, you'd secretly go and acknowledge them anyway. How could I refuse? Besides, ever since you went back to your birth parents, you haven't even bothered to greet me. What use do I have for you now? Now that you need money, you suddenly remember me. Too late. Go ask your birth parents." I paused, then added, "You claim you only acknowledge them because I told you to. Well, now I'm telling you not to come looking for me in the future. I hope you'll listen this time too." Without waiting for Wendy's reply, I hung up the phone, according to my friend. After I hung up the phone, Wendy cursed really badly, with every sentence packed with mother-related insults. She even made threats at my friend's place. "Since Bella isn't controlling me now, you can tell her not to count on me for her future elderly care." I was speechless. I wouldn't dare rely on her life-threatening version of elderly care. I thought about it and worried she might go after my other relatives and friends. So, I took the opportunity to send a message to all my relatives and friends, informing them that Wendy had found her biological parents and that I had severed the mother-daughter relationship with her, urging them not to lend her any money. I specifically emphasized that if anyone did lend her money, I wouldn't be responsible for repaying it. This message successfully made my younger brother laugh at me. He even called me specifically to mock me face to face. "Sis, you didn't listen to the advice of your elders, and now you're paying the price, without spending a dime." "I'm not in the mood for your mockery," I snapped back. After hearing the reason for my fallout with Wendy, he sighed and asked, "Do you want to come back and stay for a while?" I knew he was worried I might take it too hard. After all, it was someone he had raised as his own daughter for 18 years. Suddenly being treated like a stranger, anyone would find it hard to bear. In my past life, I did take it too hard. After learning that Wendy had already acknowledged Kathy and David, and even deceived me into giving them money to help raise their son together, I still couldn't bring myself to cut ties with her immediately. Like a gambler who's lost everything except his underwear, I bet my last piece of clothing, still believing I could make a miraculous comeback. In the end, it all boils down to the sunk cost being too high. I supported her for so many years, poured so much love into her. Yet she betrayed me, turning all my efforts into a joke. I refuse to accept that my efforts have become a joke, unwilling to cut my losses in time, and moreover, in the end, I paid for my unwillingness with my life. In this lifetime, I've learned to let go. Ever since the pressure of raising Wendy was lifted, I've felt completely at ease. Every day when I open my eyes, it's no longer about how much her tuition, tutoring classes, living expenses, or pocket money will cost, nor how much I need to save for her future car or house. I find myself having to check prices for everything I buy, not even daring to purchase expensive skincare products. Now, I can buy the best and my favorite things within my means without batting an eye. It's incredibly satisfying. So, I turned down my brother's invitation to go back. My brother comforted me again, saying, "Sis, don't be upset. That ungrateful brat will have tough times ahead, you bet, without my support." Whether she could even go to college would be a question. Kathy's family taking her back now is clearly just to exploit her. She's not too bright, easily bought off by her biological parents' small favors, thinking they're some kind of good people. I'm just sitting back waiting to see her downfall. You wouldn't believe it. Wendy's jokes come at lightning speed. Just 2 days later, my brother called me again, specifically to share her jokes with me. She went to my brother for help with tuition fees, crying and telling him that her biological parents were too poor to pay for her education. Well, after she had a friend call me last time, she did muster up the courage to go back to her biological parents to ask for tuition money. Unfortunately, she didn't get any and instead had to listen to them complain about their own poverty. But I couldn't help but laugh. Her tuition fees were less than $10,000 a year, and including her living expenses, it only amounted to $20,000 or $30,000 annually. There's no way her biological parents couldn't afford that. When she returned home, Kathy and David hosted a recognition banquet combined with her college celebration, setting up over a dozen tables. The gifts alone from guests exceeded that amount, simply because they had a son still in high school at home. They were unwilling to spend the money on Wendy. As for the student loan, it required my signature to be approved, as her household registration was still under my name. So, she went to beg my brother to lend her the money for the tuition first. After all, before I abandoned her, even though my brother didn't particularly like her, he never showed it in front of her for my sake, and was even quite kind to her. That's also why she didn't know that when my brother's words strike at someone who's already down, they're as venomous as poison. My brother said to her, "Don't call me uncle. I'm not related to your Lee family by blood or marriage, and I don't deserve that title. Asking me won't help. My money doesn't grow on trees. If your own parents can't even afford your tuition now and aren't willing to borrow for you, how can I expect them to pay me back in the future?" Wendy was silent for a moment before saying, "Then I'll pay it back myself." My brother sneered, "Then I definitely can't lend it to you. You could betray the mother who raised you for 18 years just like that. If I lent you money, wouldn't you call me an idiot behind my back?" Wendy argued, "I didn't betray my mom." My brother cut her off. "My sister worked tirelessly for 18 years to raise you, and in the end, you turned around and called the people who abandoned you and never raised you for a day your parents. Is my sister's effort worth so little in your heart? Who are you trying to disgust?" He paused. "Don't tell me you didn't know you were abandoned. When my sister found you back then, she spent a long time trying to locate your biological parents, so most of our relatives know about it. They might gossip, but they clearly told you, you were abandoned. You've been to high school. Don't you know what abandoned means? No wonder my sister spent so much money on your tutoring, and you still turned out useless. Guess it's in your genes. Just plain stupid." After finishing his tirade, my brother concluded emphatically, "Looking at it now, it's no wonder your biological parents abandoned you. A thankless wretch like you could never be tamed." In the end, Wendy cried and said she regretted it, claiming she never realized I'd take it so hard. Had she known I'd be so against her reconnecting with her biological parents, she swore she never would have done it. Then, she knelt and begged my brother to call me, saying she wanted to apologize and promise she'd never acknowledge her biological parents again. She cried with genuine emotion, desperate for tuition to attend school. My younger brother said, "My heart softened. who was applying a face mask at the time, jolted up as if on my deathbed and cursed outright, "Are you fucking loaded with too much money, or are you trying to scam me?" My brother replied, "No, I treasure money as much as my life. How could I possibly lend her money knowing full well it wouldn't be returned?" I just pointed her in the right direction, to take her household registration and paternity test, transfer her household registration back to her biological parents, and then they could help her apply for a student loan. Can he speak without taking such long pauses? I let out a long sigh. "Please don't call me anymore. Seriously, thank you very much." It said that in the end, Wendy's biological parents, under pressure, still paid for her first year of tuition after all. They had just proudly welcomed their daughter back, and turning their backs on her immediately would have invited gossip. But this money was only given after Wendy signed an IOU. I thought that from then on, she would never contact me again. But just half a year later, she reached out to me once more. By that time, I had changed my phone number, so she added me on WeChat using an unfamiliar number and left me a message. "Mom, I was wrong. They treat me terribly. Mom, please forgive me just this once. I promise I'll never acknowledge them again, and I'll listen to everything you say from now on." "Okay, Mom, I know you have the kindest heart. For the sake of our mother-daughter relationship, could you lend me 2,000 yuan? I haven't eaten all day." When I didn't respond, she lowered her request and sent, "Mom, if not 2,000, then 500, just to help me get through this tough time. I'll pay you back as soon as I get my part-time job salary in a few days. Mom, could you please reply to me? I'm really starving." She went on and on, starting from how she begged Kathy and David, even writing them IOUs, yet they would only give her 400 yuan a month for living expenses. Then she complained that her younger brother, who was just attending high school in the city and didn't need to worry about anything, got over 1,000 yuan every month. She also mentioned how the place where she worked part-time unreasonably withheld and deducted her wages. In the end, she resentfully shifted the blame onto Kathy and David, grumbling that they clearly didn't want to support her yet insisted on reclaiming her. She said things like how they had searched for her for 18 years, but it was only to bring her back, to make her a brother-supporting slave, while also expecting her to take care of them in their old age. Every time she asked them for even a single penny, they would lecture her with a bunch of words about gratitude, proving they never truly loved her. It did sound quite pitiful, but as I read these messages, I suddenly remembered her actions in her past life. When I found out she had recognized Kathy and David, I merely rationally analyzed her biological parents' behavior with her. Yet she angrily accused me of meddling, slammed the door, and left. At that time, I also considered severing ties with her and never caring for her again. But before I could fully make up my mind, she returned the next day to apologize. She cried and said, "Mom, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said those things to you and hurt your feelings. Actually, I regretted it as soon as I walked out the door yesterday. I even slapped myself twice afterward. You've raised me alone all these years, treated me as your own, and always considered my needs, yet I never thought about your feelings." She paused, raising her hand to swear. "I promise, I'll never hurt your feelings again. Mom, my dear, my most beloved mom, please don't be angry anymore. Just forgive me this once, okay? If not, you can even hit me to vent your anger." As she spoke, she even deleted her biological parents' WeChat contacts and phone numbers right in front of me. Seeing that I still hadn't spoken, she hugged me and cooed, "Mom, you're not angry anymore, right?" I was still upset, but seeing how sincerely she admitted her mistake, I ultimately forgave her. I thought, after all, she was the daughter I had cherished and raised with utmost care. I couldn't completely dismiss her just because she had acted foolishly once. After that, she pretended to be well-behaved in front of me, and I never caught her contacting her biological parents again. Moreover, she had already graduated and was working, so she didn't come home often. Little did I know, her apologies and pretense of good behavior were all just a ploy to keep deceiving me for money, continuing to support her biological parents. 3 months after I forgave her, she told me she wanted to buy a house, a 3-bedroom, 2-living-room apartment over 140 square meters, and that she had already picked one out, but she only has 5,000 in savings. And even though housing prices in Y City aren't high, the down payment would still be 300,000 to 400,000. Which happens to be exactly the amount I have saved. Her intention was clear. She wanted me to cover the down payment, That's not the main point. The main point is, I find it suspicious that she suddenly wants to buy such a big house all by herself. But I asked very tactfully, why did you buy such a big house? Cleaning it alone would be exhausting. She explained it beautifully to me, in the future. When I get married and have a child, plus you, wouldn't it be just perfect? If we're buying, we might as well do it right the first time. Afraid I wouldn't believe her, she emphasized, you're my only mother, of course you'll come live with me when you retire. If she hadn't emphasized it, I might have been completely convinced by her, but the moment she emphasized it, I felt something was off. I thought about it for a moment. This apartment would actually be quite suitable for her biological parents and their family of 4 to live in together, so, I didn't agree to pay the down payment for her. I said, let's hold off for now. I don't have that much money on hand at the moment. As soon as I finished speaking, she immediately retorted, how do you not have that much money? I just checked your savings amount not long ago. After speaking, I realized I had said the wrong thing and quickly tried to make amends. I didn't mean to check intentionally. It's just that last time when you were shopping, the SMS notification showed your balance, and I just glanced at it. I thought to myself, if a mere glance could make her so certain, with that kind of memory and eyesight, she wouldn't have needed all those extra tutoring classes just to get into a second-tier university. Looking at her anxious expression, I understood. This house was likely bought for her biological parents. As it turned out, my guess was correct. That night, she sneaked out, and puzzled, I followed her. I overheard her calling her biological parents outside, complaining about me. Bella keeps saying she loves me and treats me as her own daughter, but she won't even help with the down payment for the house, and she doesn't have to pay the mortgage either. After hearing their response, she continued, Mom, don't worry. I'll definitely help you buy a house. You've suffered so much in the countryside all these years searching for me. Now that I'm grown up, I won't let you suffer anymore. I'll figure out a way to get the money myself. Her way of sparing her biological parents from suffering is to make me suffer and foot the bill for them. That really, filial piety, me to death. At this point, I've completely given up on her, but it was already too late. After I refused to pay for her, she developed murderous intentions towards me for money. In just a few days, I was gone. If it weren't for Wendy whispering the truth in my ear after I died, I would have truly believed until the end that it was just an accident, that my car's brakes had suddenly failed. Now, listening to Wendy complain about Kathy and David, I smiled. In her past life, she believed Kathy and David loved her, though it didn't require them to spend much money to support her. Just a few small favors and sweet words were enough to earn greater benefits from Wendy, but in this life, when they were expected to shoulder the major expenses, they naturally became unwilling. Consequently, even their pleasant demeanor vanished, and their true colors were revealed much earlier. I replied to her, isn't this the parental love you've always longed for, the love you were supposed to have? Now that you've gotten everything you wished for, you should be content, then. I blocked her new WeChat account as well. Don't believe the crocodile tears. Even if she's really starving to death, that's her own business. It has nothing to do with me. Besides, her household registration has already been transferred out of my name and back to her biological parents. We have absolutely no connection now, and I don't care whether she lives or dies. But my brother does. I heard about Wendy again the following year. My rebellious younger brother, whom I explicitly told not to call me anymore, called me again with news about Wendy. He said Wendy couldn't repay her online loans and, for some reason, still had his phone number saved. The debt collectors blasted through her contact list and ended up calling him too. How should I put it? Unexpected, yet somehow not surprising. Wendy never really suffered from financial hardship during those years she was with me. My mindset was that since I decided to adopt her, I had to take full responsibility and raise her properly. I never deprived her of food or clothing, nor did I intentionally withhold her allowance or living expenses. She never had to worry about making ends meet. When she was in high school, she only ate lunch and dinner at school. I gave her a monthly allowance of 1,000 yuan, and if she wanted to buy anything else, I provided additional spending money. Compared to her current situation of having to eat all 3 meals out every day with only 400 yuan for living expenses, it's like night and day. With just 400 yuan, it's a struggle for her to survive, so it's no surprise she resorted to loans. After her online loan information leaked and her contacts were exposed, Kathy and David immediately tried to distance themselves from her, even demanding she move her household registration out again. They were terrified she might affect their son's future and ashamed of how she had embarrassed them. I happen to have relatives who know Kathy's family. It said that Wendy was severely scolded by her biological parents. Kathy pointed at Wendy's nose and yelled, "You're nothing but a money loser. No wonder your adoptive mother didn't want you either. All you do every day is ask for money. After spending so much of our money, you're still not satisfied and even took out loans. If you're that desperate for money, why don't you just sell yourself?" Wendy argued back with them. "You're the ones who insisted on taking me back in the first place. You had an obligation to support me, but you didn't even give me enough money for food each month. I only took out loans to survive and feed myself." Seeing her talk back, David even kicked her a few times. "If we'd known you'd turn out like this, we shouldn't have taken you back after abandoning you. We originally thought bringing you back would mean we could benefit from you in the future, have you support us in our old age and help your brother buy a car and a house, but instead, we got this kind of trash, dragging our whole family into ridicule." After the scolding and beating, the elderly couple told her to get out immediately and never come back. After Wendy left, there was no more news of her, and she dropped out of school, but her loan, with interest piling up, amounted to less than $20,000, just borrowed for survival. If Kathy and David had given her even a little help, she could have gotten back on her feet. Once she graduated and started working, she could have easily earned more than that, but Kathy and David never intended to help her in the first place. Kathy's relatives even thought I was heartless, believing I could just abandon a daughter I had raised for 18 years without a second thought. I scoffed. "I still stand by my words. It has absolutely nothing to do with me," my brother said. "Of course it has nothing to do with you. I'm telling you this because I'm afraid that little ingrate might come looking for you again, and you might soften up and help her. That kind of ungrateful person should be left to fend for herself and learn how cruel the world can be." I thought for a moment and said, "She definitely won't come looking for me again. We've completely cut ties," my brother replied. "Don't be so sure. She's desperate now. Who knows if she might try to get you to pay off her debts." I suspect my brother has a prophetic mouth. Wendy actually reached out to me again, 2 months after my brother told me about Wendy's online loan debt. She changed her WeChat ID once more and sent me a message of repentance by adding me as a friend. "Mom, I know I've wronged you and shouldn't contact you again, but I miss you." The moment I saw it, I blocked her new WeChat ID again. After all, she's bad luck for me. Just one glance at her message, and I can have nightmares for several nights. After that, Wendy probably realized I was dead set on never taking her back. She never contacted me again, but I never expected that, half a year later, I would hear about Wendy again. This time in the news, Wendy accidentally killed Kathy. It all started with that online loan. After dropping out of school, Wendy couldn't find a decent job, and her salary wasn't enough to repay those loans. The debt was suffocating her, so, driven to desperation, she took a knife and went back to confront Kathy and David, threatening them to help repay the money. She believed it was Kathy and David who ruined her originally happy life. In her words, "If Kathy and David hadn't come to claim her, I wouldn't have abandoned her. She wouldn't have been left without tuition and living expenses for college, forced to drop out eventually, and ended up with so much debt. Therefore, the elderly couple must help repay this money." As a result, when she threatened the elderly couple with a knife, they thought she wouldn't dare to actually use it. Not only did they ignore her, but they also planned to beat her up again. He even threatened her harshly, a worthless burden, racking up so much debt outside, and still having the nerve to come to us for repayment. Go ahead, try using that knife if you dare. Then, the two of them, fearless to the point of recklessness, actually tried to snatch the knife from Wendy's hands, and then, turned into die. In the chaos, Wendy accidentally plunged the knife into Kathy's major artery. By the time the ambulance arrived, it was too late. She was already gone. David was also severely stabbed by her, but fortunately, after emergency treatment, he survived, though he will likely never walk again for the rest of his life. Wendy was arrested by the police that same day. Reading the news, I couldn't help but sigh. As I was still reflecting on it, my brother called me again. His tone carried a hint of lingering fear. "Sis, thank goodness you were wise back then, decisively moving overnight and blocking all of Wendy's contact methods. Otherwise, this would have been my fate too. I've experienced it in my past life. after expressing his concern for me, my brother couldn't resist sharing some gossip. Now even her biological parents' relatives are saying you were clear-headed and wise. It takes someone who raised her from childhood to truly know what kind of temperament a child has. I want to say, it's not that, it's just a lesson I paid for with my life. In my past life, I also had a thick filter for Wendy, always arrogantly believing that since I raised her myself, I knew exactly what kind of person she was. That's why I fearlessly forgave her. In the end, it turned out to be nothing but my own beautiful delusion. Finally, Wendy was sentenced to death. I went to see her. She was no longer the bright and youthful girl she once was, and she cried excitedly when she saw me. She called out to me, "Mom." I didn't respond to her calling me Mom. She sobbed and rambled on to me, summarizing it as, she felt she had failed my 18 years of upbringing, and if there were an afterlife, she hoped to be my daughter again to repay this debt of gratitude. I quickly replied, if there really is an afterlife, I hope we never meet again, not in this life nor the next. She said, you'll never forgive me, will you? I nodded, yes. She asked, why? I thought for a moment, because no one looks back just to love you all over again. Let's take this to heart together. After hearing the story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.